right, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight, learning a little bit more about the different course areas of the traveling school. Um, you've already introduced yourself in the chat. And we'll start with introductions and kind of narrow in on tonight's focus. This will be different than our last webinar, and I'm not sure y'all were at the last webinar, which is totally fine. We have a recording if you're interested. But tonight is really going to be specifically about the places where we travel. So we may not be specifically going over a lot of the nuts and bolts kind of questions, but we can certainly, you can ask those questions at the end for sure. And our course areas are Southern Africa, South America, and the Western US. So first thing, introducing ourselves. So I'm Mary Reid Munford. I'm the admissions coordinator. I was a teacher for the traveling school in the Southern Africa semester about 8 years ago. And I just came back to the traveling school this summer as the admissions coordinator. And I'm really excited to help us relaunch our international programs next year and also to get back on the road for in-person events. I leave tomorrow for some open houses, which I'm very excited about. And the thing that I love most about getting ahead of ourselves. There we go. Okay. The thing that I love most about the traveling school is the place-based nature of what we do. I really we coach and teach how to learn, to look at something and to process it, to see the world around you as your classroom, which is really a lifelong skill and something that, I feel like I use all the time in my life. And it includes asking the questions and facing complexities of the world, and kind of learning how we can be meaningful change makers in it. So, all right, Aunge.
Cool. Hi, everybody. My name's Aunge Thomas, and I am the academic dean and program director. And I've been in this role for about 9 years now. And prior to that, I taught on 4 different semesters. So I've seen both the Southern Africa, the South America, and thirdly, the Western US semester in action. In my role, I work closely with Mary Reid all the way through getting to know our applicants, and then I start focusing on students once they're enrolled and creating curriculum and program design, and then also working closely with faculty. And why I am here at the traveling school and have been passionate about it for so many years is because I just love to see that learning process. I love to see both students and teachers become passionate about their classes, education, asking questions on the fly, and making connections between the speakers and the classes and the activities. So just that real life learning right there, and doing it because you're interested, not for a grade. And then also just the connections that each semester builds, no matter what. There's no 2 semesters that ever form the same community. There's no so every community norm is different, every inside joke is different, or song list, and they're all so incredible. And so that's what I love, just this continually changing nature with all these similar threads throughout the past, almost 20 years of semesters. And so we recently updated our mission, and we really, as we were doing this, we thought long and hard about the words that we chose here, because this is our heart and soul right here. And we believe that it's the essence of why we're here and seeking the amazing students like you. And so we recognize that this is a semester of growth. For example, everybody comes into this semester and has a voice. And our goal is to help you see and amplify that voice. So building confidence in there, strengthening your perspective, and going onwards to be a positive change maker in your community, whether that's in your family, in your school, and then further on in life. And with our mission, then we also have our corresponding vision. And so this is just what it is when our mission is in action, our vision is this strong, compassionate female leaders build an equitable and sustainable global community. So after you've gone through a traveling school semester, we believe that this is the vision, the way that each of our alumni and stakeholders can live in this world. And so those are kind of our grounding pieces of the school, right?
Yeah, that's at the heart of, well, and I think it's important to start with like, what's the same of every semester? Because we have different course areas, but the mission and the vision is really the same. And kind of getting to some of the nuts and bolts, we are for young women ages 15 to 18. We have 3 semester locations. Southern Africa is where we travel in the fall, South America in the spring, and we've developed this Western US itinerary since COVID. And so right now we're focused on returning to our international semesters, but we've loved running the Western US semester too. So keeping that in the running. And we're technology free. So that's a big change from a lot of the, I was a high school teacher until June. And obviously I think we've all been on Zoom. We've all been doing lots of technology in the classroom. So it's a big shift from that, which is really refreshing. And it's experiential learning, which means you're learning from experience. You're learning from the places where you are. And that, like, the world is your classroom.
Yeah. So while we're traveling, we're also a school. And so we've gone through a intense accreditation process, which means that our classes, they're designed by our staff and past faculty, but they should give you credit at your school. So our honors literature and composition class should transfer over and help keep you on track to graduate. We've been doing this, like I mentioned earlier, for 19 years. We're almost to our 20th anniversary. Through that time, we've worked with hundreds of high schools to transfer credit, including international schools. So if you're going down the road to applying, we just want you to know some schools might pause at because they don't even understand what a semester school is. And so we just want you to know we're here to help. We are a school, and we'll just be traveling with our academics and taking it outside of the classroom. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Sorry, it's taking a sec. There we go. Okay. Go for it.
Yeah. And so Mary Reid said, yeah, we have 3 different itineraries and locations. What's the same? Our mission, our vision, and how we run the semester. So the experiential piece, the experiential academics, community engagement, outdoor adventure, and then through all of that, developing leadership skills. So we adapt everything based on our region. So in Southern Africa, you're studying the Southern Africa climate, the animals, you're living in those cultures, all of those things. And in South America, speaking Spanish is part of daily life. Western US, you're traveling in vans fully self-supported by your own crew, your teachers and your classmates. And I just want to also say, every semester, we build off of the same itineraries. So if you know somebody who's been on a semester, let's just pick South America, and you choose that one, your semester is going to be slightly different. We always adapt these itineraries based off of community connections, new opportunities, and then also risk management decisions. So what's changed in a region? What are we, and that's a big piece of my job, is what's going on differently environmentally, politically, socially, that we need to keep our eyes on and shift around as we make these itineraries. And then throughout the semester, itineraries are also flexible. So we never publish them. And parents get a week-by-week itinerary prior to the semester, but not a day-by-day one, so that we can stay nimble and flexible.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with this one, partly because I I taught in, well, two things. Ange and I actually met in Zambia 10 years ago, where I was coordinating a project for the traveling school. So I worked in Zambia right after college, and I found myself coordinating a building project for this crazy semester school in the US. And Ange, that was one of the semesters Ange taught. And so then I, came back and taught, and then taught for the traveling school in the Southern Africa semester, and then now I'm back here. So, this is pretty near and dear to my heart. um, and so both of us have also taught in this region. So in the fall, we go through Southern Africa. We're conversing in English, but you're hearing over 10 different languages in the areas you're traveling. So that's pretty distinct. And let's see. And this is Big Blue. So the way we travel in each semester is slightly different. In this one, we traveled with this big overland, they call it an overland truck. It's really kind of more like a bus. I like, this image is maybe a little blurry, but it's good to see sort of the structure. You can see underneath, you keep your bags and your tents, and you have tables to set up your kitchen, and you're doing group cooking and tent living. It's also our warmest semester, as you might maybe guess. Temperatures can be, over 100 degrees during the day, but you can also have those cold desert nights. It can be colder than you think. And we're supported by a driver and a cook who help us out, and they stick with us for most of the semester, which is it's a pretty cool opportunity too, because you're, learning from locals that become a part of your sort of group. And you start in Zambia. So generally you're starting near Victoria Falls, which is pretty amazing. And we're going to go through a lot of different places. And like Ange said, this is not a specific like guarantee of place by place, but these are sort of where we're aiming for. And so you start near the Zambezi River, which is a majestic place. It's one of my favorite places on earth. You might be doing some kind of rafting, and you'd started a backpackers where we've been staying there for over a decade. They're owned by friends of mine when I lived there. And you spend the first couple weeks getting to know the group, getting to know each other, doing team building, setting norms, and also having your first classes. So you might stay put for a little while at the beginning of the semester to really kind of get on board all together. And I love this photo so much. I think Ange and I both love this photo because it's a math class right next to the Zambezi River. So you can see like you really are learning wherever. You might have, you might be rafting in the morning and then camping, and before dinner you sit around and have a math class, which I just love it so much.
Yeah, and so if you're wondering how that all happens, so on this river trip, all these students hiked down into the canyon. Other people brought the boats down, and prior to this expedition, the teachers had told students, "Hey, we're going to need this. You're going to need this notebook for your math class. Bring your calculator. Oh, and then actually, we're going to tear out these pages out of your global studies book because we're going to be doing this reading and discussing this article." So it's a little scary. You actually do tear paper out of textbooks so that we can lighten the load and go on these expeditions. And then, of course, on this river trip, everything had to fit into dry bags, so that we really do think about how can we be, you come with 1 or 2 bags, and then you have to shrink down, become more minimalistic on these different expeditions throughout the semester. Yeah, and so we just spend a short amount of time in Zambia, and then we start working our way through Botswana. Here's a student it's called Elephant Sands. It used to be an old hunting camp where people hunted elephants and other large game, and now it's a conservation area. So it's a place where the elephants know that they can come and be safe. There's watering holes right near the campsites. Oddly, most of these places they fence the humans in at night, and so that the animals can come and use the watering holes and eliminate that interaction. But we've been coming here for a few years, and students here prioritize science and doing scientific observations and working on hypotheses and monitoring elephant behavior. So, yeah, and then we're just scooting through. You're a couple weeks into the semester now, and now you're over into Namibia. And Namibia has a phenomenal coastline, yet a large part of it is inaccessible to tourists because of the diamond industry that happens there. But the parts that you can see, and even the whole coastline, is called the Skeleton Coast because of all the old ships that have wrecked on that coastline there. So lots of intricate history in there. This country was settled by, it was a German colony, so their national language is German. So bring that into the mix of what you might hear. And then you're studying the diamond industry, like I mentioned. You're learning about a genocide that is largely goes untold in the histories. And then you're doing a lot of this in these sand-swept landscapes, climbing sand dunes, watching sunrises and sunsets. It's a pretty amazing country right over there. Mary Reid, do you have any other highlights from Namibia?
No, we didn't actually go through Namibia.
Oh yeah, you were on the other thing.
Speaking, like we were one of those semesters where like because of specific situations we had to shift, but y'all been going back to Namibia pretty much ever since, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mary Reid's semester, we tried a different way and we went over to Mozambique. I forgot about that.
But my semester did end in South Africa, and so people are always like, "Wait, Southern Africa or South Africa?" Both. We get there eventually, and South Africa is just, I mean, it's such a fascinating place. There, you're looking at the lasting impacts of apartheid and what it looks like to rebuild a nation. Yeah, to rebuild a nation, and you know, it's changed dramatically since 1990, which is pretty recent. Um, you might go to Cape Town and see Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was, or go to the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, which is a cool, it's an African boarding school. So you might be collaborating with African students there. There's also the Apartheid Museum, reading literature by South African authors like Nadine Gordimer, and a sort of tried and true piece of our itinerary is this rock climbing in the Drakensberg, with longtime partners, Alex and Gustav, who run this rock climbing company called Rock and Rope. And so, you know, my semester went there, Ange's semesters went there. We've been doing that one for a really long time. And they're kind of a key example of like an organization we have deep roots with that we keep going back to. And I think now they often like host finals. Is that right, Ange?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Finish with finals there and then go off on these really cool rock climbing or abseiling, rappelling adventures, a little bit of both.
Yeah. Nice. All right. I know that was rapid, but we're going to shift gears now to South America.
Does anybody have any questions about the Southern Africa before we jump along?
Well, feel free to either put it in the chat and or we'll have a little bit of time at the end as well. Thanks for making this.
Yeah, so South America, we typically go Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia. And this was actually the location of our very first semester back in 2003. And so, again, lots of people who we know along this route, who we've developed friendships with throughout the time, and then watched their families grow and change as well. So starting with the basics, again, on this semester, everybody takes a Spanish class, and we offer 3 different levels of Spanish. And so students immediately, even if you don't have a background in Spanish, you are thrown into when you are trying to go to the store and buy your own snack, you're speaking in Spanish, you're being asked for money in Spanish and doing those exchanges, which makes that feel just very immersive and unique. On this semester, you spend a little bit more time in towns and hostels, and we travel more with a combination of private transport, so just private buses that we hire, or public buses, depending on the length and of the travel. And then spending time in hostels. So this means whereas in Africa, you're supported by a driver and cook who travel with you, South America, you're supported by hosts and hostels that we generally have worked with over the years, and then also going to local restaurants and markets for food. And groups will make food in hostels when it's available. It's always just a little bit on a case-by-case system there. This semester is pretty outdoorsy. There's various backpacking trips that happen at high elevation. So upwards of 15,000 feet. So that means you experience snow and a little bit colder weather on this semester. Yeah, so starting in Ecuador, we've been starting at an organic farm, which is a really neat place to just dive in and learn about different ecosystem and what crops can grow there, how to harvest those crops and rotate them to keep the soil rich in nutrients. Everything is composting while you're there. So composting toilets, they collect rainwater and treat that. And we live with the family. They have a separate dorm area for students, so you learn how to cook with the family based off of the fruits and vegetables that are growing at that season. And then you move onwards. There's big oil industry in Ecuador. So let's get into the nitty gritty of that and think about where the oil comes from and see the impact on different towns, see towns standing up against big industry and saying, no, you cannot come here. And we're going to do everything we can to prevent drilling in our town. How those activists have kept their towns and other towns may not have had a say, and the industry is there, and how that's changed it. So just looking at the complexity right there on that global resource. Take a break and step back from that debate and backpack around Quilatoa Lake, which is a high elevation lake in the Andes Mountains. It's in a crater, so you look down at this emerald colored water, and I think you do even get to swim in there at some points. And then also might as well go do some rafting on a paddle raft with your crew on the Hatun Yaku, which is over near Tena, if anybody's familiar with Ecuador. Yeah. And then Peru is another just long country to make our way all the way from the north to the south of Peru. The classic picture here of Machu Picchu, and this is definitely a staple in our itinerary. With this section, we work, well, I'll come back to that, but we work with a family and a shaman named Puma. So we'll come back to that. But here, you know, before we get to Cusco, we're in the Sacred Valley area and visiting Sacsayhuaman and some other phenomenal sites right there. So we build up our knowledge of the Inca and pre-Inca civilizations. Prior to that, we've gone to, do you like how I switch between we and you? Because I like to pretend that I'm always there. So notice myself doing that. There's the Chan Chan ruins, which are actually built out of sand and along the coast. So that's another phenomenal site. And I can't forget about the northern part of Peru, where we do this backpack through the Cordillera Blanca. And it's been really neat. Our school has the pictures of these receding glaciers and over these mountain passes from the years. So from 2003, we can see, oh, how is the snow line receding every year as students walk past this same mountain pass through these narrow rocks, which is pretty cool. And while you're there, you're studying a little bit of glaciology. And then throughout it all, we're just really fortunate to have communities that we work with. So in Ecuador, we've done homestays historically. We're moving more to group stays, but working with a community outside of Otavalo there and learning how to dye yarns with them, learning how to harvest food, potentially we've helped build a soccer field and put lights up, or community projects on their community center. They're helping restore roofs and everything like that. Yeah. And here's a picture back from my semester. This is one of my students, Maddie, sharing pictures with Puma there and his brother, Rebby. And these are the two that I was mentioned in that previous slide. Just another, these folks, this family leads trips throughout the Sacred Valley. And they've been with us, for so many years. This is semester was in 2010. And we met Puma and his family through a former faculty member who Heather had gone on a exchange and gone down and lived with Puma and his family to learn about herbal and natural medicines as she was contemplating medical school. Short story, she ended up with a traveling school, and then shared this connection with us. And so when we're with this family, we just see the inspiration and the passion for their history, and they share it with us with their whole heart and bring us into the Sacred Valley, where it's almost like you can feel people walking and living through Sacsayhuaman, or Machu Picchu feels like it's coming to life because of how well they know each stone in those areas. So that's just ways that are, and so students they're doing history class by asking questions and living this experience, walking through the Inca Trail. They're doing science class at the same time. So sometimes while we're backpacking, you pull out your science field journal and you're investigating a plant right there. They're like Mary Reid said, they're reading literature, stories, and books, and poetry from regional authors. So we're highlighting all of these adventures because our academics are the adventure there, and they're woven into everything that we do.
Yeah, and so we end up in Bolivia. And this is when I'm just gonna have to make sure I'm pronouncing things correctly. Um, and we visit the Potosi, is that right? Potosi mines.
Yeah.
One of the largest operating silver mines in the world. We go to the mines, talk to the mine directors, talk to the miners' wives, learn about the like complex industry and complex lives that they live. We do treks to learn about farming. Like Anja's saying, we're pairing all these things with, there's a lot of things that are fun and adventurous and, sound cool, but then we are, almost always pairing it with some sort of academic learning. And there's a culminating trek in the Bolivian Andes, which, I mean, man, I love looking at the photos from this. So students are working together as they summit a peak. It's kind of like a final team experience. Learn to use crampons, ice axes, travel in the snow. And, it's a real sort of culminating kind of adventure. This is when it comes together. There's confidence, willing to try something new, working with other people, communication. You do treks like this with people you've learned to trust over the course of 3.5 months. Yeah, I want to make a second. I know I'm going to try to wrap up Western US in about 5 minutes because I want to make sure there's time for questions. But do y'all have any questions about the South America itinerary or section in particular before we move on to the Western US? All right, cool. And like I said, you can hold it for the end, or yeah. Okay, cool. And so yeah, so the Western US, since COVID, we had to get a little creative and stay in the country. But it's an amazing way to sort of take some of the same lens we take for these other international contexts and to look at our own cultures and our own legacies, our own history. Um, you know, these might be conversations or cultures that are more familiar to a majority of students, but so you're applying that same sort of critical lens, but it feels a little bit more personal. And sort of logistically thinking about it, like An said, we travel in, it's like two vans, right? There's kind of gear and humans.
Mhm.
um, and so you're kind of a self-supported trip, uh, truly a road trip. The combo of the heat and the deserts of Africa, but then those mountains, just like South America. Um, and there is a pretty big focus in this semester on outdoor living skills and expeditions. So obviously there's outdoor components to all of these, but this one is a little bit more like you do 10 plus days canoeing, you have rock climbing, pack rafting, canyoneering, backpacking, all those kind of things. So do a little bit more of that in the Western US semester. And you can see here the general route, and it's a wiggly line on purpose. um, but Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona. And so like our current semester started in Montana. They're currently in Wyoming, right, Ange?
Yeah, they actually just moved to Utah. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So they were in like the Tetons a couple of days ago, and they'll end up in Arizona. Um, Oops, there we go. All right. Yeah, so this is our current group. I thought it'd be good to have a recent photo. They started in the Bozeman area, spent some time at a retreat center in the Paradise Valley near Yellowstone, spent a lot of time, like I said, start the semester with intentional team building um, in an incredibly beautiful location, doing challenge courses, watching and studying wolves and elk in Yellowstone for science, geothermal science with geysers. Um, Pretty amazing area to kick off the semester.
Yeah, and from there, then they went on to the Missouri River, which is also in Montana. And here they really focus in on public land use and different types of public land. So as Mary Reid said, 10 plus days paddling over 100 miles down this river. So getting used to setting up camp and taking down camp every day, working with a small group on backcountry stoves to make meals, practicing leadership. So every semester, students become leader of the day, and on the organization that we partner with for this trip, they practice it on these expeditions. So right away, these students were being the voice for the day and planning the schedule and working through all the logistics right there of how to get the group downstream and fit in classes and some fun along the way too. And here they talked a lot about Indigenous sovereignty in this area and what that has meant throughout the years, and current controversies and activism that's happening in this area.
And I might skip a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect. Oh yeah, so Wyoming, look at those smiles. They just came off of a pretty big trip, so they're proud of themselves. This is our fall semester of last year. And yeah, so while they're in Utah, they visit Capitol Reef and stay at the field station there, Capitol Reef National Park, I should say, and they basically have their introduction to the Colorado Plateau and the Colorado River system. So all these water issues that are happening in the West and learning how those impact the different ecosystems that they go through. Further south, one really cool moment last fall, had been backpacking in Bears Ears, learning about the political discussion there and how the Trump administration had shrunk Bears Ears. There's a lot of activists and people fighting to get those original boundaries reinstated. And our semester just happened to be in Bluff already had a talk planned with some people that are very active with Bears Ears National Monument on the day that Biden reinstated the original boundaries. So our students got to witness everybody's emotions and reactions to the work that they'd been doing after they had traveled through the area, after they had studied about it. And, and some of our students agreed with it and some of them didn't. And so just hearing those perspectives and that dialogue and being able to witness, history in the making and recognize that there's always multiple sides to each story in there. Yeah. Okay. I'll be speedier. Here they are. They're doing volunteer work is another part that we try to emphasize each semester. And for us in the Western US, that's looked like going on to various tribal lands in the kind of the Four Corners area. And so we do this by partnering with other organizations. So it's looked different each time. So sometimes it's helping families prepare for the winter, harvesting their foods, doing some household repairs to insulate it better. Other times it's, in the spring, it was getting ready, coming out of winter, planting the garden, building a solar unit for a house, tending to the goats. And this semester, it looks like they're going to also be working on a farm again. So interacting there. And through this, students are generally working on an oral history project. So trying to gather stories about something that they're interested in through conversation and interacting with the hosts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. I skipped through one, but let's go to Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So Arizona, basically border to border, right? So Montana, they don't get all the way to the northern Canadian border, but we do get down to the southern border right there and have classes looking at the wall. And so thinking about that right there, just they're unpacking the U.S. immigration policy while at the heart of it, right? And so seeing some parts of the wall are very beautiful and other parts have a bit more stark landscape around them. And so just processing what that feels like to be there, learning about it, and then seeing it all too. And so as you're going through this academic journey, Arizona is also the time that we have to put closure to the semester. So that means finals, that means presentations, means getting ready to say goodbye to this community that you've spent 15 weeks with. And that no matter how many times you see them in the future as an alum and as friends, that community is never going to be the same. And so just really celebrating everything that you experience over the course of 15 weeks, whether it's in the Western US, in South America, or in Southern Africa.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to bring in, and this, Liz will answer your question a little bit more about classes mapping onto core curriculum, but and I know we kind of keep saying this, but I feel like it's just so important. I definitely talk to parents that or schools that are nervous. They're like, okay, well that sounds fun, but like academics. And so, I find this quote particularly powerful from a parent whose daughter was at a rigorous high school in Chicago. Our daughter not only kept up with rigorous academics and merged seamlessly back into a highly competitive high school, she broadened her understanding of the world and takes a more thoughtful approach to analyzing information and ideas. And that's really what we're hoping for. And then I'll just do one last slide before we open it up for Q&A, just so you kind of have an idea. The admissions process is kicked off. The application went live last week, and it's open until February 15th. So here are the steps. There's an application for a student to fill out. It has some short questions and then a fewer longer answers. There's a $25 fee. And then you start talking to your school. And again, like Aunge said, we can help you with that if there are any hiccups there, if your school doesn't know what to do with this proposal. And we also give you a specific form and some course descriptions to take to them so that they they know what they're signing, and they know what they're agreeing to with credit transfer. And you get 2 recommendations, and then if for that teacher recommendations or from a coach or some other trusted adult, at least one should be from a teacher. And if relevant, you apply for the scholarship, for need-based scholarship, which is through FACTS, which is a online system that we can help you navigate as well. But thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you got a sense of what we're all about. And please follow up with me, and check out the website, check out social media to keep learning more. And we hope you apply.